London, 1888. 5 women, 5 murders, 1 killer never caught.
One of the most cunning killers they've ever had to trace.
37 years later, his name has finally been revealed, and the truth is darker than any story ever told. He was not a doctor, not a nobleman, not a surgeon. He was a 23-year-old Polish immigrant. Living in the slums of Whitechapel, barely known, completely forgotten, until DNA changed everything. His victims had names, they had lives, they had families. Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly. 5 women murdered between August and November
Mary
1888.
Jane Kelly, murdered on November 9th, 1888. The killer disfigured her face, slit open her chest 5 minutes later on Catherine Eddowes.
In the dark alleyways of London's most desperate neighborhood, Whitechapel, where poverty was a death sentence, and nobody was safe after dark. The murders were savage, brutal, calculated, and completely without mercy. London was terrified. Scotland Yard had no answers. And then, the letters started arriving. Dear boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. I am down on whores, and I shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled. Signed, Jack the Ripper. The letter arrived at the Central News Agency on September 27, 1888. It was the first time the world heard that name, Jack the Ripper. And the world has never forgotten it since. But was the letter real? Most historians believe it was a hoax, written by a journalist to sell newspapers. The real killer may never have written a single word. Scotland Yard investigated. Desperately, frantically, over 2,000 people were interviewed. 300 people investigated, 80 suspects named, and yet nobody was ever charged. The murders stopped as suddenly as they had started, and Jack the Ripper vanished into the fog of Victorian London, forever. For 137 years, the world debated, who was he? A doctor, because of the precision of the wounds? A nobleman, because Scotland Yard allegedly covered it up? A butcher, because of his knowledge of anatomy? Over 500 books have been written about Jack the Ripper, more than any other criminal in history. Until a shawl changed everything. In 1888, at the murder scene of Catherine Eddowes, a police officer named Amos Simpson took a shawl. A blood-stained shawl found near the body. He took it home as a souvenir. He never washed it. The shawl stayed in his family, passed down through generations for over 130 years. In 2007, businessman and amateur detective Russell Edwards bought the shawl at auction and spent years trying to unlock its secrets. In 2014, he found the answer. Edwards contacted Dr. Jari Luhalainen, a world-leading expert in forensic genetics. They extracted DNA from the shawl, mitochondrial DNA, from 2 sources. One matched a living descendant of Catherine Eddowes, the victim. 2 matched a living descendant of a suspect, Aaron Kosminski. The DNA was a 100% match. Jack the Ripper had been identified, Aaron Kosminski. Born 1865 in Poland. Came to London as a young man, lived in Whitechapel, the same streets where the murders happened. Was known to police as a suspect at the time. Was committed to a mental asylum in 1891, 3 years after the murders. Stopped. Scotland Yard detectives had actually identified him as a suspect in 1888, but could never prove it. And now, 137 years later, his DNA was on the murder weapon. Russell Edwards said, We now know the name. We have placed the murderer at the murder scene. Jack the Ripper was Aaron Kosminski, but not everyone accepts the DNA evidence. Some scientists have questioned the methodology, the chain of custody of the shawl, whether the DNA could have been contaminated over 130 years. Other researchers have pointed to different suspects: a barrister, a doctor, even a member of the royal family. The debate continues, but the DNA does not lie. And what about the victims? Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly. 5 women who deserved justice. 5 women who never got it. 5 women whose names were overshadowed for 137 years by the name of the monster who killed them. Catherine Eddowes' descendant Karen Miller said, "The name Jack the Ripper has become sensationalized. People have forgotten about the victims. Women who did not have justice at the time. They deserved better. They still do." Jack the Ripper terrorized London in 1888. He was never caught in his lifetime. He died in Leavesden Asylum in 1919, and for 137 years, his identity was the greatest mystery in criminal history, until DNA finally gave us the answer nobody expected. A 23-year-old, forgotten by history, living in poverty, in the darkest streets of Victorian London, Aaron Kosminski, Jack the Ripper, found 137 years too late.